Wednesday, it is brutal out there. That is absolutely brutal, brutal, brutal PA. And it does reinforce the most important thing, and that is staying true to your process, staying on the right side across markets. Now, I don't know. I don't have a really good and strong read. I know I get notes all the time. Buy side boost. Oh God, thank you so much for not only helping me move forward drastically, but really protecting me. And I feel like that cohort is perfectly safe, in a great place, and really appreciative. The ones that I'm worried about are the ones that have yet to commit to the discipline. Everyone's in expert phase, Bitcoin trading at $125,000 up and to the right, and be like, why do I need a system? What do I need a system? I could just buy and hold. Yeah, that works. And hopefully in the long term it's going to work. If you were an investor in silver and that was your whole MO, I mean, look, there was a brutal, 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 brutal decade. A brutal decade. And yeah, if someone throughout that whole time either just bought and hold, I mean, that was just a waste of time and money. If you were dollar cost averaging into silver, fully allocated into silver, hodl into silver, and over that decade, bought down your average cost down towards $20 an ounce. Right now, you're 3x that. That feels good. That's not why we're here. We're here to do absolutely epic and legendary things. And above all, that starts with staying safe. By the way, big shout out, silver, $66 an ounce. What did we say? We said, I'll see you at 90. And it's not stopping there. Now, I don't think that is going to be straight up, but I didn't think that was going to happen with gold either. I didn't think that when we spoke about, on the breakout, like, I'll see you at 2,500 and it's not stopping there. We'll reevaluate at 5,000. Like, I had no idea the magnitude of this move over the last 18 months. It has caught me by absolute surprise. And is Bitcoin setting up one day to do Bitcoin things of such? No doubt about it. Listen, let's just start and get it out of the way. And this is so important for so many, because here's the moment to change lives. Here's the moment that it really hits home. Here's the moment you realize that no, everyone's not an expert. No, I'm not an expert. No, having a process and allowing me to be on the right side. Yeah, there'll be times that I feel like maybe I'm underperforming. And then there's going to be times that, like, I realize the value of being safe and protected and continually compounding money at a really tremendous rate. That's where everything lies. Right now, those that are in the markets on both sides are just currently positioned on the right side. Regardless of what you believe is going to happen, regardless of what I believe is going to happen, you're positioned on the right side. Cardano here, that hedge from when we had Ethereum long. Ethereum took a long recently and stopped out. It then flipped short right now. And then we have Cardano holding that short, that hedge over here. And that's nothing. That's just simply staying on the right side, hedging yourself, small, small, small. Eventually, we're going to be catching a wave. And whether that wave is to the upside and you're fully positioned across Bitcoin, Solana, Cardano, Ethereum, whether or not it is a little bit of action that we had over here earlier in the year where Ethereum starts taking some mega gains, and Ethereum does all the heavy lifting. Ethereum just did that, and I do believe that this time of cycle, there's a good chance that, as we saw last time, that, did you hear Raul's calling for bananas again? Listen, eventually he's going to be right, and I fully believe that. And it's going to be when the PMIs are kicking a lot higher than they are right now, when we are really running this thing hot. But I think we've been calling bananas here for now. I did it one time with y'all. Was it the summer of 2023? When the big bananas have begun? 2 years later, 2026, the risk is not being involved in alts. No, right now, as the Fed stops QT and begins to go ahead and stabilize the liquidity, from this point on, last time Ethereum outperformed Bitcoin, you saw that pick up when the Fed drastically wound down QT. Ethereum finally able to find its footing. We'll see, but I expect that we have some similar behavior this time. And I also think, I said it last week, this might be the time to begin shopping some hodl bags on alts. Now, there are other people out there watching this like, Jordan, hodl bags? CTM 1.0 all day long. I'm not getting caught on the wrong side. I'm going to line that up. But the point is, you should be watching that. Brian, I heard an investor. I put 1% in silver over the past couple months. Position's gone up 20% twice now. I sold all in the middle. So I think it's going. I've seen so many times that you've seen. By the way, hold on one second. I'm gonna pull up silver, but Tesla's our only stock position. It's still holding. It was looking great this morning, up a few more percent. Right now, equities are on their back foot. Nasdaq really getting kicked as we saw Blue Owl pulling funding for Oracle data center. They're like, I don't think that's a really good investment. I think we're going to go elsewhere. So we'll find out, whether or not that seems to be a little bit of the AI boom shakeout. And again, there are going to be companies. Wouldn't that be wild if Oracle failed? If they did, you got to give it to them for trying to make the turn into the future, right? They're like, I'm not going to become a blockbuster. At least I'm going to go ahead and do our best to go ahead and be at the forefront. And that might not happen as well. They got a lot of circle jerk going on here with OpenAI, and OpenAI is bleeding money. They're probably going to try to go public, and they're going to try to become too big to fail. And then likely we're going to see the Powell, he won't be here, but the printer will be running, and they're going to go ahead and do whatever needs to be done at this point. Right now, the stance is, look, there's a lot of competition out there, and there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers. But eventually, you look at the GDP, and they're like, oh, we need to run this thing hot. 50% of GDP is coming from this AI build out, this AI boom. We got to keep that going. Print at all costs. Keep it going at all costs. Silver, 1%, and then all of a sudden becomes 20%. Sounds like a futures position. The leverage in the metals on these futures is absolutely massive. And which is why, like, taking, like, if you're in spot and you've been through like a couple of dances, maybe you bought silver at 35, you've been through a 70% drawdown. It's like a slow motion Bitcoiner. It's like a slow motion Bitcoiner. And you're not worried about whether or not from here we have a pullback back towards, $45 again, or anything like that. You're just holding. And then when it comes to a time that you thought you would sell, maybe you thought you would sell at 70, you're like, nah, I'm gonna hold this thing. And you wind up be like, oh, I'm never selling that position. But what's interesting about silver and gold, and some people like buying all sorts of different types of silver coins, coins out of circulation, ounces, what have you, is that, in an emergency, people say you should have 3 months of or 6 months of expenses in case of an emergency. Sound advice. It sounds like, I was going to say Gordon Ramsay advice, but Gordon Ramsay's that chef. Who's the guy with the extraordinarily large podcast? He hated Bitcoin forever. He's recently turned. I have a lot of friends who listen to that, and yeah, I don't know his name, but he reminds me of Gordon Ramsay. And what's his name? I can't think of it. He'll probably tell you should have 6 months of before you invest. You should have 6 months of expenses. A Bitcoiner will be like, throw it all into Bitcoin, wait it out. Within 4 or 5 years, things going to appreciate, and then you're going to have a lot more than 6 months expenses. Same thing with silver, right? You know what? Someone who went ahead at any point in time and they put 3 months of expenses, 6 months expenses into silver. Today, all of a sudden, now they're looking, oh, I got 9 months. You know, Dave Ramsey. I was close. What did I say? Gordon Ramsay. Ah. The last time we looked at total, we haven't looked at total three in a while. Let's have to do that. Ethereum here breaking down now. That's bananas. Ethereum is breaking down now, and you can see the bearish continuation pattern triggering. We don't like them apples. Bitcoin, watch out. I saw someone talking about the I thought I had a RSI pulled up over here. I saw someone talking about, yeah, uh Real Vision. They're talking about like you know, every time the RSI gets oversold, 30, the last 5 times, the equivalent would be 180,000 Bitcoin within, less than 90 days. And we're like, it depends if whether or not, momentum's moving up or down. If you go past 6, 7, and 8 times, then you have a completely different outcome. It matters if you're in a bull market, which I think we still are, or, some people are now saying, oh, this is a mini bear. I saw an interview, and I won't mention names because I like the bloke and there's no question about it. But in this interview, they're like, listen, you like these guys that were calling for $250,000, and now they're still like, oh, Bitcoin's gonna go higher from where they are. You can't listen to them. And then they're like, you have to think of right now that you're in a bear market. And then they go back and they're like, so what? Remember last time we got together for an interview was 1 year ago, and we gave price predictions, and I was like 320,000 Bitcoin by this time, and you were like $250,000 Bitcoin, and then and he's like, yeah, but in all fairness, a few months ago I changed that to 150. I was like, yeah. Anyway, I thought it was hysterical. Um, Bitcoin here. Let's go ahead and just see what's going on. And let me just see if I could. Not like that. Let me come back here to 8 hour, zoom out, and let's just take this line over here and see what's going on. And I'm looking at structure. There you go. It's like support, resistance, bring it back down to where we just were. Yeah, it's messy, but I could still, this is for sure the breakout that we're waiting for, that we're looking for. Let me come down to a smaller time frame over here. And that's really messy. I was just looking at the last wick. Nothing lines up over there. This thing is looking really bad at the moment. And we're just gonna have to keep it wide where we were, looking for that resumption out on the outside. And then again, same lines over here. We got to get above this resistance. This is the massive important resistance that we're looking at. That is the one that I have, before breaking, really highlighted the importance of it. Since then, it's become resistance, that massively important support. When the RSI is pinned down like it is on the daily and goes below 30, we've looked at yesterday. If this is line right over here, it's very clear. If we were to break the structure below 83, then that's going to set up another leg down. I don't know if that's going to happen or what. I don't like. There's a lot of selling taking place today, but I have a feeling that when's the Santa Claus rally? Actually, I think that things are lining up into the end of the year, and definitely into January here for a bit of a rise. So I'm watching that. I think that Thursday night, Friday's Bank of Japan is going to be a non-event over here. And I think that it's already priced in. And just to add a little bit of insight over here, I gave an update last night. And I said that there will be no Japanese carry trade unwind from the 25 basis point hike. The stimulus reinforces structural yen weakness, potentially pushing US dollar Japanese yen higher over the weeks in the mud. If fiscal risks dominate near term, JPY may strengthen marginally, but the trend remains in place. Yesterday, Japan approving a $118 billion stimulus. Japan's parliament improved the budget to blah 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 blah. That $18 trillion yen budget passed. Oh my goodness. As the budget was approved. So look, we will implement strategic fiscal spending to protect people's livelihoods and build a strong economy. Sure, you will. Listen, what's important here is looking forward to ultimately where the US and other countries end up. And right now, obviously, they're like, we're losing control here. We got to raise rates. We got to off our bonds. But at the same time, we're going to just print a bunch of money and we're going to counteract that, and they are caught between such a rock and a hard place. I think that this was a lot of hoopla about people who were influenced from the last unwind, and that last unwind lasted about a couple of months or less than 2 months before they had to go, so we got to pivot on that policy really quickly. That's the situation they're in. Like a pirate. Sorry, this is an emergency. Sorry about that. That was literally an emergency. Pirates. CTM is becoming pirates. Arr, I like it. The trading group I'm in is seeing 3 rising valleys in play on the monthly chart for Bitcoin. Let's take a look at a monthly chart of Bitcoin. So here we're just, CTM is like, I'm on the sidelines. 113,000. A break above there, a buy impulse, and then it's a little bit higher at this point. That would be aggressive at this point because we know where that structure is hiding over there, and we got to clear above it. If I was looking at a monthly chart, and I would say, let me come over here. Let's go like this and look at a monthly chart. Monthly chart. That's a little zoomed out for me. That's a little zoomed out. If I was trading the monthly, I would say that like monthly is pretty zoomed out. I would say, listen, on a monthly chart, I think that anytime I get into the zone, which is above the orange and the first solid line above, that looks like an opportunity that I don't want to pass. And 68,000 Bitcoin, I think a lot of people might be like, ooh, if I get some 50K Bitcoin, imagine $55,000, 0.1 Bitcoin, $50,000 one Bitcoin. I think we're gonna see a lot more people bidding into Bitcoiners, but I think a lot more of take out the April low over here, a lot more people just around 75,000 Bitcoin and be like, that's my spot. I want it. I didn't get that in April. I was like, the markets were crashing. I was a little bit like caught up in the hoopla, long term, 75, a lot of Bitcoiners, I think. And I'm not talking about all of this institutional money that's been absorbing all this selling. I mean, a lot of what we call guys who have been here since 2017 and since, they're going to be like, yeah, that's I want to really take a better position here. And then I think that if you traded down, well, I don't think we're trade down to 55,000 Bitcoin is cheap. Off a monthly chart here, I don't it's just, especially on Bitcoin. We could look at silver on that monthly chart, but Bitcoin is trading 24 hours, 7 days a week. So a monthly chart is like looking at actually, a 6-week chart on other assets. It's a long time. And I'm reminded of I'm reminded of this yearly chart right here. And I remember this yearly chart. And I remember right here in January of 2023, as we called the bull market breakout, you know, just weeks earlier, 17,250. I remember there are people being like, looking at the daily, they're like, for sure Bitcoin's going lower next year. Because looking at the daily, it's looking at the yearly here, it's closing at the low. It's just too high of a time frame for me to get involved. I think the daily is a pretty zoomed out time frame. On Bitcoin, we focus in on the 8 hour, and that's a really strong time frame. So I don't. It's just I'm stick to the trading group then, because that's not that's way I can't give any type of real uh accuracy looking at the monthly over there. But looking at the monthly, you ready? Here's where I'm looking at the monthly, and I know a lot of people didn't believe me when we were looking at the TGA raising their general account, and I was like, that's a liquidity headwind. And sure enough, such a liquidity headwind that the Fed has to stop QE and come in with $40 billion a month. But Bitcoin, for sure, people like Bitcoin, is very, very, like it's very susceptible to liquidity. And sure enough, Bitcoin coming off plus 30% drawdown, bull market, you know, trading above some. And then I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, all right, most people didn't see that. We saw that coming. And now looking at what's happening in liquidity, we see that most people are like Bank of Japan, it's going to blow things up. No, I don't think that's going to happen. But what I do think is going to happen is that looking at liquidity, we're going to say, oh, monetary base total. Jordan, everyone told me global M2. I told you global M2 was weak at best. It was just not, it's just simply a poor indicator. But I told you this is what to watch. Sure enough, over here, you see the sharp downturn. Bitcoin obviously has been in a sharp downturn. This is about to turn now and start going the other way. Yeah, it's not going to be dramatic. It's going to be something like we saw over here. And we know that this is the period that risk found its footing. And I think that over the next several weeks, that's exactly what's going to happen this time as well. So looking at the monthly, a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's going down," and I'm like, "Well, I look to the future, and I try to see what is going to happen next." And we have been under this liquidity drainage and pressure. Dollar softened up a little bit. That's going to help overall liquidity over the next month. A little bit of a lag on that. And then looking ahead to what I deem to be the highest signal over here, monetary base total, that thing's about to turn up. I think we're about to put into a bottom. Now, I don't know. I'm not going to put any, just like this whole since 2000 and the only price prediction I made was 17,250 bull market breakout. Not one single target on the upside at all. Why? Well, last time I had expectations. I should have listened to my original expectations. When I onboarded people into Bitcoin, $5, $6, $7, $8,000, I was like, all right, Bitcoin is going to trade somewhere between 55 and 130. And then we had that massive December 2020, and I was like, oh no, I think we're diminishing returns is going to be proven wrong. We're trading above 180,000. And if I could give my best price target, it was somewhere around 220, 230,000 Bitcoin. We didn't come close. 53,140 de-risk. Something is way off over here. Should have stuck to my original assessment about what I thought was going to happen, but I didn't. I don't give any upside price targets at all. But I do think that we're in a position over here that we are looking at the macro about to bottom. Solana has a major lawsuit, right? Evidently, I can't say evidently. I'm following here from afar. So it seems like insiders were finding coins that were being launched on Pump Fund and then making it not fun for everyone else, front running that liquidity. And that looks bad news bears. That looks bad news bears. I know we don't trade the short side here, but I just want to take a look at what would be going on over there. We don't trade it. It's profitable, but it has such a low win rate that we just feel, you know what? It's better not to trade it and just trade on the buy side. Yeah. Listen, I don't know what happens. Allegedly, yeah, there's a lawsuit, so some pretty serious charges too. But you know what? So could Solana be the new Cardano? And Cardano is great for trading. And I imagine Solana will also have time to look at XRP. It's not great for trading. We can't trade it. But great to see you, everyone here with the. So I wish I could give more. This is a major moment here in the markets, and so Supreme Court, it probably are gonna rule that Trump over. I'm making this up. I don't know what's gonna happen. Are probably gonna rule that Trump overstepped his reach, and they're gonna probably put, like, say he could go up to 15% tariffs. And this could put a bid in the dollar. If you remember that what we saw happen is that when the dollar, when the tariffs were instituted, let's go ahead and take a look at a chart of the dollar. And we come back over here, and this was Liberation Day. For sure, we were already in that downtrend. But then you saw a massive, massive move down. So if the tariffs were rolled back, I think that could help actually put a little bit of the devaluation into the dollar. And I would also listen, a lot of people, and we were looking for it. We talked about every time the dollar's had a massive depreciation, you've seen Bitcoin go boom. And this time we saw the dollar depreciate by more than 10% and Bitcoin not go anywhere. I would imagine and I don't know how much of an effect it would be if they're just allowed to issue 15% tariffs on the dollar. It would definitely probably take us back on towards this level over here. And if that's happening, that actually might put a bid into Bitcoin. That might put a bid into Bitcoin. I don't think it's if they ruled the tariffs were 100% illegal, and that they have to take them all off, then at that point, I think we would see a sharper dollar appreciation. That might even be that major resistance I'm talking about. And that might even be loftily, but I don't see anything else. I would have to say it's high from where we are right now, but I could see that happening easily. So if like, and I don't know what the tariff is right now in China. Is it 35%? They have to roll back to 15%. That's the largest trading partner of the US. Would the dollar bid up a little bit? That's my projection about what would happen. That's really what I think what would happen. Yeah, let's take a look at Circle. So we saw a nice gap up on DXYZ. That was probably off of OpenAI. OpenAI receiving like another 3 billion from Stargate, but that's like 3 billion. That's probably like what are they burning through? $100 billion a year. 3 billion buying them like a week. Anyway, but my expectations here as we move towards the SpaceX IPO in 2026, that SpaceX may carry this. And OpenAI, they're making deals everywhere and all the time. So Circle, that's fuzzy, and I don't like. Obviously, I have this off the resistance support. This is now chopping back and forth, so I don't see any edge whatsoever in that one magic line. So I would probably now go like this for a downside support. You don't want to break that. If you break that, something's wrong. and up over here. And if you're looking long term to accumulate, if you were looking to accumulate, then I think right here in the middle of the range is good, and anything closer to the bottom portion of it would also be good. And yeah. Oh, I think that well, I think this is largely priced in. I think over the near term we could see some price fluctuations. Look, I wouldn't be surprised if we traded down to 153 or even 151 in the near term. Near term is, sometime after the decision. At the same time, looking at what's taking place, the fundamentals here, and they're printing a bunch of money that's going to weaken the yen. And, I was asking Grok which one is going to carry more weight as far as what's going to happen over here. And it seems that the weakening of the yen is going to trump the 25 basis point hike. Now, they could come out and they could be like, we're going to be raising another 25 basis points in January and then another in March, and what their expectations are going to matter. What they say their expectations are going to matter. But the reality is, in the end, I think that the printing is going to trump, and that even if they come out with these like very hawkish scenario, the market pretty quickly is likely going to force them to have to pivot. I don't think that this is going to be the hoopla that everyone expected, and that's where I stand. I don't know. Is Bitcoin manipulated and being manipulated? I don't I don't know in what sense. There's no doubt that what we saw over the last year was a major, major, major distribution taking place between people who had been holding Bitcoin for several years plus, and that money has gone into institutional hands. And I think that long term, that's going to be looked back as extraordinarily healthy that all took place. And yeah, I don't know if it's being manipulated or not. I think in the past it was probably. I look back at what happened in 2021, and FTX selling Bitcoin they didn't have. That was for sure manipulating price. I think that what we've been going through right now, the way I look at it, is a major tightening phase. And I think this is the slide to pull up right over here. And you know what? For Bitcoin during this particular last couple of years to have appreciated so much during adverse monetary policy, I am the one who always said the bull of all bulls will not really be running until monetary policy aligns. We're just now making the turn, right? And you can see during the era of QE, that's when monetary policy really aligns. So we're moving from the end of QT, and then we got the end of QT is right here. The end of QT. I don't know why they have it over here. That's not true. This is where QT ended in September of 2019. And that's when they began running the balance sheet up. Very clearly, two lower lows occurred. Then Bitcoin found its footing. I think this was a great anomaly. Something different could happen. You know, the magnitude of locking down the globe is something that could be considered an anomaly. And if that didn't happen, I don't think that we would have, come down 60% over here, super quick. Um, yeah, it seems like I think that's manipulation. All right, we want to talk about, I think that's every time Eric Trump is like, oh, Bitcoin is gonna, or crypto in the fourth quarter is gonna rip. There's been a major sell off. So there could be something under the bar going on over there that could be signaling to people that, if so, that's major manipulation. Major manipulation if that's happening. Major OG selling, and eventually an equilibrium is played out, right? And an equilibrium is eventually there will be less, there's just like less people looking to sell, or with price down to 83,000, maybe people are like, I'm not looking to sell that over here. I was planning on selling as I got my affairs in order at 110,000, 120,000, and I don't really not looking to sell down 30% less. So I'm just going to wait this out. And that, I think it's just the market. And markets are manipulated, no doubt about it. It's our job to navigate that. And that's why we have models that help us stay on the right side. And that is everything. It's so ridiculously important. And it can be seen here right now as you all are preserving your capital. And yes, it does offer opportunity. Like, we've not lived through it in such a long time. I remember coming and, I'm just going to come to I'll come to a monthly chart. And, a lot of us that went through the dot-com bubble bust and then the great financial crisis, talk about recency biased. That ingrains a very strong bias within you. And then I know many people for the next 10 years that thought the market was going to crash all the time, all the time, because they had just been through a decade of that happening twice with mega, 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 mega rug pulls. And that was ingrained in them that that's what's going to happen. And then we've seen since every year a call for a lost decade. Oh, the lost decade's coming. And the greats, Stanley Druckenmiller 3 years ago calling for a lost decade. The greats, right? So does that mean though, since the last 15 years, it's been last 16, 17 years, it's been straight up to the right, that's what's always going to happen? No, we just actually went through a massive bear market in 2022. We went through a massive crash in 2000, early 2020, a nice correction in 2018, and a nice one just in April. And those will continue for sure. And yes, it is possible that we have some type of massive, massive, massive badness. I can't even imagine the magnitude of what it would do to people if something like this were to happen. If you look at the government receipts for expenditures and a large portion of that, like, what would the US government do? Anyway, it could happen. I get worried looking out into the future when I look at the macro and I say, well, there's going to come a point in time where running it hot runs out of steam. And when that happens, inflation is going to be higher than it is in 2026. And then I get worried about what the ramifications of that will be. And who knows what world we live in then, because 3 years is a long time, and the world will look different in just 3 years than it does to today. And it is true. We're going to see a lot more automation. You guys see in barns right now where there's a bunch of cattle and you got robots cleaning it all up. The robots are coming everywhere. What are the ETFs looking like? That's a great question. I would love to check it out. And I think the quickest way for me to do that would be like this. Let me put up the great Ed Sakota and his P&L just to remind you. I mean, so we could go back the last time Bitcoin price was relatively the same into April, right? So I'm going to go back into March, right? March through April, Bitcoin trading at roughly the same price it is today. And then come back over here. I'm going to go back into April. That's April 2023. Here is 2025. Yeah, we got April, and I want to go into March. So Bitcoin was at that point roughly $36 billion, and today it is 57 billion with price the same height. That seems really bullish to me. I that seems really bullish. Really, really bullish. That's a tremendous same price and a tremendous amount of more money accumulated into Bitcoin spot ETFs. Ace, that looks really bullish to me. What about Ethereum? And then Ethereum, as we come into, I don't think it's the same though. Like, this is when money started flowing into Ethereum, really. So, I mean, massively higher as well. This is like, over 2x higher. But those are bullish signs. Those are very bullish signs to me. So you're looking at the outflows of and so Ace, we know over a short time frame that outflows and inflows are very let's say price influenced. When price goes down, there's outflows, and when price goes up, there's inflows all the time in the spot ETFs. But if we step back and we look at when price was the same coming back earlier in the year, 9 months ago, there's a massive amount of inflows that have come in since. So I think that's bullish. This is it. This is interesting. Hold on one second. This hits close. So I actually think there's an opportunity to pick up land in the near term for people who have no kids and want it, and they are aging out. I think it flips where everyone would want land with robot. It'll be a lot easier to work land with robots. I don't know how far away that is. Did you guys see that last demonstration with Optimus? And he was serving water at an event, and then he fell backwards, and as he falls backwards, it looks like he took VR glasses off. Someone had been controlling it with VR glasses, and I don't know how far away that tech, but I would say this: if you go back 2 years ago to where Tesla's FSD is right now, it has advanced tremendously, tremendously, and 2 years from now, it's going to continue. And I don't know how to put a timeline on when robots could be working the land. I would have to say that's got to be 10 years away, right? Is that true? You know, I think that's good forward thinking though. And over the next 10 years, you are going to see a lot of people who own assets, land, houses that need to sell those assets as they move on to the last phase of their life, and then that's passed down as far as inheritance and then usually sold right away. I think that there is going to be pressure out on the real estate market, and specifically over the next, it's hard to time those things, definitely in 2026 and then further. And then when I say I get worried looking forward, right? When I say I get worried about, and maybe that changes, that view could change over the next couple of years, but like, let's say we had another couple of years and they're able to run it hot and into 2027, maybe things get euphoric. A lot of people are expecting that's going to happen in 2026. I think that we muddle along here for a while, and then that begins to pick up and then accelerate. And then as things are accelerating, I'm going to be wide eyed, and I'm going to be like, oh no, we have to really be concerned here about what happens next. And that might be, if there is any type of, I'm not talking a slow motion drip in the real estate market, residential housing. I'm talking about an actual correction. And before then, this is what makes it so hard. Before then, yeah, the Fed could return to outright QE. And if the Fed does return to outright QE, that you're going to see a major devaluation bump once again. People that bought in 2021, in like the last 5 years, the housing hasn't gone nowhere. All of a sudden, they're going to see a quick, 25 bump in value, if not more. It's complicated. That's why we're here every day. There's a great site, just in case you probably know it. Land Search. I think it's Land Search. Check that out, Brian. I never liked inverse head and shoulders. I remember one on the DXY that played it out so well. So I'm looking here on Ethereum. Let's move over to Bitcoin. Let's check it out and take a look at what's going on. I like when people throw out ideas that I haven't entertained before because there's always the opportunity to learn something. So you're talking about if we believe on a weekly inverse head and shoulders, 68 to 17K. So if I'm looking here on Bitcoin, I don't see an inverse head and shoulders. I'm gonna go ahead and just tilt this down and invert this chart. I, so I'm looking for a head and shoulders now, and I don't. This inverted. I don't see one. Like, is this is the highest price point, so this would have to be your head, and I don't think this is not inverted. Like, that doesn't look like a head and shoulders to me. Maybe if you come up to just above 106,000, maybe if you get people saying, "Oh, we're back above the weekly 50 SMA, above 130." If that happens, then people are going to be like, "Oh, there's a head and shoulders developing, and the neckline will be something like this." And then if that were to break down, then that would be and take us back towards $55,000 Bitcoin is cheap. If something like that were to happen. As far as an inverse, though, an inverse, instead of like on a regular head and shoulders, the angle is like this. So on an inverse, it's like this. So there's an upward sloping like this trend line, but I don't see it there. I don't see it. I would love to see a chart. If you could post a chart of that and then tag me at Traders Mastery on X, then I could first of all take a look at it to see what you're seeing. I don't see it. Doesn't mean it's not there. And then we could talk about it tomorrow. Yeah, there we go. That's what I was seeing too. Land search is fantastic. All right, y'all. We're gonna keep it short here today. I like today's session. I like here being with all of you in the trenches, working it out, making sure that we stay level-headed, and most importantly, on the right side. I'll see you all tomorrow, everyone. Have a beautiful day. Enjoy it. God bless you. I'll speak to you soon.